I never thought about being a boy before I went on the internet. Like, that was never a thought in my mind. I noticed that there were differences between men and women that bothered me, but I just never wanted to be a boy.
What differences bothered you, and how were you bothered by it?
Um, Women were like objects. Uh, they were sexualized. Yeah,
Hmm.
that that
And
that just kind of goes into my reasoning of why I wanted to transition. So that's like a whole different story in itself. But that's to put it simply. It was just that women were sexualized and they had to be sexualized and they had to sort of put on this performance to gain men, to gain love, to gain marriage. Basically, they just had to try while guys just had to exist.
when did you notice that? How old were you? Do you remember?
Um, it was after my peers had hit puberty. So like my cousins, the kids at my school, I was bullied for hitting puberty very early. I was 9 and they hit
Hmm.
puberty shortly after. So like some at 10, it started mostly at 11. Um,
Wow.
and that's when I started noticing that girls were being sexual. They were literally having sex in closets, or they were wearing push-up bras. They were stuffing stuff in their bras, um, taking birth control, trying to be just trying to show skin. It was just it was scary um, for me because that's not what I thought love was. In my mind, I had this very childish idea of love, which was, you find your prince, you guys fall in love, and the sex bit that's something you don't talk about. It occurs, but you know you get married and have kids and live happily ever after. It wasn't this whole thing that girls were doing. I mean, I would talk to girls, and that's all they seemed to talk about was
Really?
sex and yeah.
Would you consider yourself to be modest or just not disinterested and that are disgusted, reviled by sexuality?
Um, I don't know what I would consider myself. I just think it's something to keep in your private life. Like I do enjoy feeling sexy, um, wearing things to show off my body, but that's more for me. It's not to gain attention. And I also do have some sort of like boundaries, like, okay, maybe I'm showing too much. Maybe this is too sexual, but I just don't like the whole hookup culture. I don't like how girls are always posting nasty things. I'm sorry if this is too explicit, but they're like, oh, I just did this sexual thing with my boyfriend. Oh, like basically posting their sex lives. I do enjoy that as any person does, but that has always just been uncomfortable to discuss or to
Hmm.
acknowledge for me.
Yeah. So going back to you being 9, 10, 11, and that like intruding into your social life,
Mm.
like would you rather have been speaking about something else, or was there anything else that you were interested in? Did you lose interest in your female friendships because that became the,
Yes,
you know, how you guys
definitely.
exchanged meaning? Yeah.
I felt like everybody was growing faster than I was mentally, which was ironic because I had hit puberty before anybody, and I was seen as a freak. You know, I was growing boobs, I was getting super tall. I mean, I ended up really short, but mentally, I was not at that stage. I lost friends because I just wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for I wasn't even ready to drive around like 16, 18 years old. I've always felt like mentally I've been I was just scared to mature.
Okay.
And my interests at the time were I still wanted to play with dolls. I still loved reading books, and at one point I had forced myself to stop playing with dolls because other people had stopped. I think I was around 11, 12 when I stopped playing with dolls, and I didn't want to. It broke my heart. It just felt like there was this pressure to grow. I didn't want to wear bras because that sort of signified that I was growing up. I would cry to my mom that I didn't want to grow up. It was bad, but
Just for curiosity, how would you play with dolls? Like, what were the games that you were playing, or like the dramas that you were staging? Like, how were you expressing yourself through that play, that form of play?
the story with my dolls would always be that the girl would fall in love with the boy. They'd get married and have kids. So, and nobody forced that on me. I was just a very girly child. I just like boys. My parents, they don't care if I would have picked up a boy's toy. Sometimes I did. Sometimes I would play with my brother's Beyblades or marbles, and I loved Spider-Man. They didn't care. That was not forced on me. That was just all me.
And what was influencing your perspective of the world? Were you guys involved in church life, or was it TV, or like what kind of socialization, or just California education?
It was just California education.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And how did you have any mentors, like female mentors? Were you able to open up to your mother, your aunts, or anybody older to help guide you through this period of rapid change?
I do have a lot of women in my family that I trust and love, especially now. But at the time, I didn't feel like I could go to anyone. The only person that I thought I could go to was my older sister, but during that time, she had moved away because, she had gotten older. So it was just my mom, and she didn't really know how to navigate that sort of discomfort. I mean, she would comfort me whenever I would cry about not wanting to grow up, but there wasn't much that she could do.
When did you find the internet?
I found it very, very young. I would, I think it was around 8 or 9. But even before that, I would play like these disc games. So it wasn't really the internet. It was just like I would insert a disc, and it was like something my mom bought. So I was always interested in the internet. I learned how to type very early. But when I found the community, I was around 12 to 13.
The community.
Yeah.
This sounds ominous. Which community? Or is there just a community out there that I'm not aware of?
The trans community. Yeah.
Oh, at 12 or 13. Okay. And where did you plug into them? What was the website or the portal?
It was both Instagram and Tumblr, but
Okay.
I'd say the first sight of it was YouTube. Yeah, I think YouTube led me to that rabbit hole, but where I would communicate to people was Instagram and Tumblr.
Yeah, that's where the community aspect was. What was it about?
Yeah.
What was so attractive or captivating about YouTube trans content for you?
It wasn't, it didn't start off with trans content and sort of started off with girls being obsessed with male YouTubers. I was into male YouTubers, and these girls would make fan fictions of them, you know, being together, being in love, kissing, all this stuff. And that
With like the
slowly,
male on male romanticism, or like an
yeah, yeah,
imagined female. Okay, yeah, so very fanficky.
yeah. And that sort of led me to, oh, you can be a boy too. You can be like them, like these guys that you idolize.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say that the trans content on YouTube was captivating. I was actually very scared. I would watch bottom surgery videos,
Out of
and they did not
curiosity or
excite me
morbid fascination?
because I wanted to be a boy. Like these people had said, like, if you use he, him pronouns, you're a boy, and you're a real boy.
Okay.
So I started looking into transition. And those videos honestly scared me. It wasn't something exciting. It didn't feel like me, but it was just more of looking into something that I had to do to escape.
Escape?
Escape being a girl.
What was, and was, so you brought up being a sexual object. Was there other things about being a girl that you felt like second class, or you're missing out on something, or disgusted by?
I was heavily bullied even before the whole period stuff. I didn't feel like I could be a pretty girl. I didn't feel like I just didn't want to compete. I mean, even now, I still see this. I don't know if it's intentional, but I still feel like there's just some sort of competition within women. You know, who's the prettiest, who's the skinniest, who. And yeah, I
How
just
do
wanted to
you,
escape the competition, and I wanted to be loved for who I am, not because of how I present myself or how I look, or if I have bigger boobs than another girl. I just didn't want to fight for a man, essentially, which is what these girls around me were showing me.
this is really personal, and there's a big age difference for, I have to bring this up because invariably if I speak to a young woman about her sexual development, I'm being construed as being creepy, but I'm just trying to understand your story and your psychology behind this. Were you able to just have a boyfriend outside of this competition? Were you able to just, besides all the girls and besides that intra-female competition, just be able to study men and what men wanted, or boys? And did you find something terribly disappointing, or what?
I did have a boyfriend while I was trans. I had two. One was trans, the other one wasn't, but
Male to
he was,
female trans
yeah, yeah.
boy? Okay.
No, female to male, the first one.
Okay.
So like,
Okay.
yeah. The second
Your first
was,
boyfriend was a boy, in quotes.
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
The
Was that
second one,
safer? Like, was that like a combination of like having a girlfriend and then, but with a little bit of spice of heterosexual attraction or masculine, feminine interplay?
I am straight. I'm heterosexual. I don't know. I broke up with him because I was not attracted to women. And it felt like I was with a woman. I I I don't know why I chose him, this trans guy. I just liked him as a person, but it wasn't anything deeper than that.
You know, I've spoken with many psychologists, and one of my a psychologist, a Jungian psychologist that I deeply admire, Lisa Marciano. I've spoken to her about young girls and ROGD, or rapid onset gender dysphoric females. And one thing that she brought up in one of her conversations was that females tend to have crushes on their girlfriends before they have crushes on boys. It's kind of a safe playground to, experience like obsession, experience like this kind of safe, low consequences obsession and bonding, like really, like getting really, really besties and getting really, really enmeshed.
Yeah.
Because it's kind of like it is female on female, but there's still that kind of like that erotic charge, and I don't mean like sexual erotic, but just like that desiring kind of thing. I'm
Yeah.
wondering, going back in your head, going back in your history, do you think that it was kind of like a middle zone, like a place to try out being with a boy that was kind of without the dangers inherent in being with a boy?
It could have been, but I think it was more so like, oh, me playing out that sort of fantasy of like being a boy and then somebody else being a boy and being together. And less like being safe. But my choices, the two choices while I was trans, were definitely safe options. Like they weren't my type. They weren't, you know, gorgeous like I would like. I just didn't feel like I could have anybody that I actually wanted.
And again, all apologies, answer whatever you want. What was it about male on male fanfic that attracted you? There's this concept of autogynephilia where a man is attracted to the thought of being a woman that is pretty intense for certain males, that drives certain males to go into transition path, especially middle-aged males. But what is the erotic, and by erotic I just mean desire, like the mechanisms or like the intensity, or like what is it about that fantasy that captivated you as like in your developmental process that it kind of drew you into itself, and kind of, it sounds like it kind of really enraptured you?
Yeah. I think it was just the fact that these men in these stories didn't have to try to be loved. They didn't have to compete, in my mind. They just had these hot, beautiful guys that just fell for them and for who they were, and that was it. Like, they didn't have to be perfect. They didn't have to be in this female competition to earn love. I mean, it's childish to think that I have to look a certain way to earn a boy. I have to do all these things to earn love. But it was just my thought process.
The Just to abstract a little bit, it sounds like what you're describing is a, might get in trouble for this, like a male has to deal with his desire to adore And what it seems like you were wrestling with in your development was the desire to be adored. You wanted to be adored. That's kind of a female
Yeah,
trait. And so
definitely.
when you see this gender idea, how did that did it confuse you, or did it give you an? I said it sounds like it gave you an out, but did it give you a ability to like, I can be adored now if I become this man? And when you started to become trans, what was like the beginning, the goal, the vision that you had for yourself?
I don't think I had a long-term vision to myself, and that you know came into play later where I thought, oh, I can't see myself living this way as an adult for any longer. So there was no long-term vision. Um, Sorry, I forgot the first part of your question.
I threw a couple of balls at you. I was talking about dealing with the
Oh,
desire to
right.
be adored and how
Uh
transition
huh.
would help you achieve
Yeah.
that.
It was it was so weird because I did it to have a relationship where I was just liked for who I was and my personality, but at the same time, I did it to hide myself and because I hated myself and I didn't want to be perceived. So it was like very contradicting. Um, I wanted to be a completely different person and I wanted to be accepted and loved, yet I wanted to hide and not have anybody perceive me, basically just
Hmm.
be in the background because being seen caused me pain, which was bullying, um, the competition. And later on, that kind of did catch up to me. Like, I got to a point where I didn't even want a relationship anymore. I didn't want somebody to like me for me anymore. I just hated myself and didn't want anybody to touch me. I didn't want to exist in society.
Huh. I feel like I'm reading some sort of really cheesy coffee mug that somebody handed me, but it sounded like you wanted to be loved, but you didn't take the necessary step of loving yourself first. If you're
Yeah.
gonna have to love yourself first,
Mm-hmm.
and being in these communities, communicating online, did you have like a central database where like a blog or a diary where you got to develop yourself, or was it always kind of in a chat format where you're just responding to other people and getting like shreds of acceptance, shreds of affirmation? Did you get to like start to form a cohesive narrative about yourself, or a dialogue with yourself, or some sort of like understanding of who you were?
I don't have the counts anymore, but it was definitely talking to other people. It was looking at these posts, which were disturbing looking back. You know, they were
Hmm.
showing me how to essentially manipulate my parents
Okay.
and health professionals, but
Hmm.
I had definitely been talking to other people.
Looking back at that now, do you have any sense that there was, this word is tricky because it's been turned into a political weapon, but do you feel like there was targeted grooming, or grooming in the community of you, like the community, like in aggregate, or like people who were targeting you to kind of pull you along, or just the group itself was pulling you along? Like, were you being influenced and groomed along this path, and how did that manifest?
I feel like I was mostly groomed in high school. Um, I don't think it was intentional. I think that the teachers and students genuinely felt that what they were doing was good and being accepting and loving. I don't think that it was malicious. There's a possibility that it was, but that's not how I felt. Online, that's different. I feel like online that was more intentional because the people that were posting these things and talking were adults and they were older than me, but
Female or male, you think?
they were
Generally.
female.
Okay.
Yes.
Huh.
But in person, the school was LGBT based because it was a charter school. And
Wait. Like there's a science school, an art school, and then a homo school. Is that what you're talking about?
no, it was an art school, but
Okay,
that
art school.
school
Yeah.
was more for kids that had been bullied, that were gay, that
Okay. Yeah.
were just sort of the outcasts. And that slowly, not slowly, I think it started pretty quickly after I got there, but it just, there had been posters. There was so much talk about LGBT stuff. There was drama with the bathroom and stuff, and it was just that all the time.
So you were indoctrinated, which is slightly different than groomed, but you were molded by your
Yeah.
environment, and you were steeped in an environment. Okay.
I had identified as a boy before I went to that school, but that school, I felt pushed into transition because in my mind, before I went to that school, I thought that I was going to attempt transition as an adult. You know, I thought when I'm like 25, around that age, or when I move out, that was my mindset. But it wasn't until I got to that school where people were asking me when I was going to take testosterone, when they were pointing out other trans kids, when they were pointing out that the boyfriend that I had was the first to get testosterone in the city. They just made it out to be this like
Natural
this
progression.
milestone, this, yeah. And when I had taken it, they were like congratulating me, like I was pregnant or something. Like
Oh no.
it felt weird, but yeah.
Whoa.
So I genuinely believe, and like I said, I don't think it was intention. I don't think it was malicious, but I do believe that if I hadn't gone to that school, that I would have waited to take testosterone or not at all, because I don't know, I didn't think it was a real possibility. I mean, I did, but it's just it was weird. And then suddenly it became a possibility because all the kids were taking it, and I can go home and tell my older sister, like, oh, this person is taking it, they told me that they got it here. Then I was able to, it was like a gateway to it that I wouldn't have known existed. I wouldn't have known to get testosterone.
Okay, so did you? So what was the process of accessing this mind and body altering chemical called testosterone for you?
I was in therapy for OCD and social anxiety, and the therapist had transferred me to an LGBT therapist when I told her that I was identifying as a boy. And for a while, that therapist was only dealing with like my OCD and social anxiety. And I felt like she just never listened to me. Everything I said, she seemed to spin that thing and not listen, and it was horrible. I was always very frustrated with her. I didn't want to go, but eventually, when I was 17, I told her about me identifying as a boy, and
When you were 14.
17.
Oh, 17. Okay.
Well, I started identifying when I was 12 to 13, but 17 was when I was prescribed and diagnosed.
In which order? Diagnosed or prescribed? Which comes first? The
Diagnosed,
testosterone.
then prescribed. Yeah.
And what were you
So,
diagnosed with? Gender identity disorder or
gender
non-binary
dysphoria.
gender dysphoria? Okay. And how did that
Yeah.
relate to your OCD or your social anxiety? Was that, have you seen the documents, the documentation, or what was the therapist telling you about like the relationship between this gender dysphoria and this OCD and this social anxiety? Were they all tied together or were they all separate?
There were separate diagnoses, but it she just never tied them in. She never really questioned. There was a questioning process, which I only remember it lasting from like 2 to 3 days, and it wasn't really a questioning process. She was more so like asking me how I felt, and I was hesitant. So I did point out that when I was little, I was very girly and I loved playing with dolls. And she told me that boys play with dolls too, gay boys. And at one point, she asked me something along the lines of, well, do you think that you have gender dysphoria or you're just insecure? And I told her, I think it's dysphoria. And she just took my word for it. No further questioning. And she said that she knew my dad wouldn't sign the consent form for testosterone. So she would hit up her buddy at Planned Parenthood, which was her friend, and get that whole ball rolling so that when it was my 18th birthday, I would have my appointment and my testosterone, and I can just walk in there and he would treat me. And I went with it.
What did it mean to you? What did testosterone like represent?
It meant that I could be someone else.
Okay.
I was disappointed with my changes because no matter what I did, I would look in the mirror and I was still me. And I hated myself. No amount of facial hair and facial changes was going to change that. I was always going to look like myself. I couldn't just become a boy as if he were a character, because that's kind of what it was in my mind, a character that I could escape to.
Escape from who?
Being a girl.
Being a girl. Did you have any other outlets like creativity or social outlets, or were you more online, more isolated during your teen
I
years?
was very isolated. Because of the bullying, I just preferred to stay in my room and read, play dolls, go online. And I still do like my isolation. But yeah.
What is the content of this bullying? Was it verbal harassment? Like what kind of bullying
Yes.
did you have to confront? And how has your attitude changed over time? toward it?
It was bullying about my appearance. They made fun of my eyebrows because I had thick eyebrows. They called me bug eyes because I had big eyes, I guess. They would make
Huh.
fun of me for being taller than everybody, for being fat. I wasn't a fat child. I was just tall. So I guess in a child's mind, it was like, oh, tall and big means fat. Like, I don't know.
Hmm.
It was a lot of that. And being shy was another thing that they bullied me for. They did not like that I was shy. Some people thought I was mean just because I wouldn't speak. They would think I was dumb, that I had problems.
Yeah.
It was a lot of that.
Why do you think you were shy? Like, what is that? What is it like being shy? What was that about from your perspective?
Definitely social anxiety. It's all mental and overanalyzing interactions. Um, Basically, being afraid of judgment.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Have you gotten a chance to enjoy being social, enjoy joking around, connecting with people?
Yeah, I do enjoy socializing now. I wouldn't say as much as the average person, but I do enjoy hanging out with people, getting to know them, going places. It's definitely better now that I'm older, but I'm still more on the introverted side.
And the OCD, how did that manifest, and what does that mean to you, or what did that mean to you by being labeled obsessive
Um,
compulsive and disordered on top of that?
I remember having OCD as long as I can remember. Um, I think since I was like 4 or 5, I just knew that something was wrong with me. I knew that the way that I thought wasn't normal because I would have these thoughts and I'd have to do stuff to get rid of these thoughts. I had to clean my hands obsessively or the objects that I was touching because of certain thoughts. Like that's just weird. I knew nobody else thought that way. So I always knew. That's definitely managed though. I don't do any rituals anymore, but I'm not
What helps you?
sure.
What helps you break out of that habit or that feedback loop?
Honestly, I think stopping SSRIs. I don't know why, but I stopped SSRIs and the rituals just stopped. It was weird. I don't know.
When were you put on those drugs?
Way before the testosterone. I'm not sure. I think maybe 16,
Okay,
15.
all right. Huh. And did your therapist give you any what are they called? Like just ways of coping with these intrusive thoughts and these rituals that worked? Like after they diagnosed you, how did they help you manage that?
These therapists were not good. Neither of them were good in my opinion. She would just sit there and sort of ask me if I had been doing my rituals, and it just never really improved. I never really got out of therapy in that place.
Did they explore any sort of traumas that you had or experienced, or the need to control, like the origin of the OCD, the origin of these rituals, the origin of the social anxiety? Was there any
No,
exploration in that department?
no.
It's just like a
I mean,
weekly checkup. Is that what this therapy sessions were?
yeah.
Huh.
She would make me meditate. It was weird.
Okay. Was it guided meditation?
Yeah.
Huh. What was it like trying the tea for you? For your first weeks, your first months on it?
I feel like I secretly regretted it instantly. I felt like a zombie. I felt like all the thoughts in my mind stopped. It was so, it was weird. I don't remember forming sentences in my mind. I mean, I did, but it was just so foggy and I felt lethargic and tired and I didn't feel like myself. And my friends and teachers noticed that decline. I had stopped being social, funny, because I was out. I would say I was outgoing within my friend group and with the teachers, and that just kind of died. Like I just
And was
and
that due to the drug or the effect of the drug, or like did you heighten your identification as a boy, change your name, and like lean harder into an identification that caused you some sort of dissonance?
I think it was definitely the drug.
Huh.
Uh, I lost so much energy,
That is totally
and
uncommon for testosterone. It's like basically it's a performance enhancement drug that it would have that effect on you. That's really unique.
yeah, I'm not sure why. I definitely feel more alive now and more energetic. And you can tell at the time that I had regretted it because a few months after my first shot, I stopped taking it for I think 4 to 5 months. And I got my period back and I was so happy to have it back, but I couldn't admit that. And I did continue testosterone after that period, but I didn't like the way that it made me feel.
I apologize again. What was the relationship with your period over time, over like from when you first got it to starting testosterone? Did it grow on you? Was it always a terrible thing? Like what did it represent to you, and how did that change over time? And I asked that not for my personal gratification or anything like that, but to
No, you're okay.
document like your
Yeah.
development. And I don't think, even though there's all this talk about period pride or whatever, I still think that your generation and the generation following you is not being given the tools to deal with being a woman, with living in that body, with living in that the meaning of that body. So I'm just wondering, from your perspective, if you mind talking about that.
In the beginning, it was terrifying because I was so little. I had not been told anything about getting a period.
Oh,
And rightfully so. I was so young. I was 9. I was terrified. I actually thought I was dying, because I was bleeding. I really thought that I was dying. And it just came so fast. And it was very terrifying for me because, again, it meant that I was growing up. It meant that I was a freak. And eventually it meant I had to become a sexual being and warp myself for boys. But I never felt any hatred for it.
it didn't feel like a
Like,
curse.
no, never. I always felt like it was comfortable. I know that sounds really weird, but over time, when you just get used to it and it's like a comfort, it's
It reminds you that your body is alive and functioning.
right. But at the time, I wouldn't like say that. Now that's how I view it. Now I'm very grateful for my periods, but I never had any sort of hatred after stopping testosterone. I didn't know if I was going to get it back. I was terrified. I would stay up crying, scared that I'd never get it back. My sister called a doctor that she knew, and he had dealt with other Detrans patients, which was shocking. But he told me that I could expect it to come back within a year, and it could be longer than a year. It's possible that it could come back earlier, but that's what he thought. And it did come back, I think, 3 months after stopping testosterone. I do have the exact date somewhere, but not at the top of my head. And I had started bleeding brown and black. I'm sorry if this is TMI. And, that is old blood. So I didn't think that I was getting my period. I thought that it was just old blood and my body was getting rid of it, and that's it. I wasn't going to get my period. But luckily, after that weird bleeding stopped, I got my period. I was so happy. And ever since then, I love it. I mean, there's pain, it's uncomfortable, but I'm so grateful every month getting it. I mean, I'm in pain right now. Like, I have a cyst right now. It's horrible, but I'm just so grateful that I didn't get the fate that other detransitioners got. And I'm so happy that my body is working. And while I was transitioning, I actually missed my pads. I missed the feeling of my period.
Was it grounding
I
in some way
don't,
then? There's a rhythm to your life
yeah,
around that?
yeah, there was. It's not natural, your period stopping as a woman and not having it. It, I don't know. I don't know if this is true in any way, but I feel like your brain would sort of freak out and be like, "Whoa, what's happening? What's happening to my cycle?" Where, you know, I don't know.
Did did they inform you when you were doing your informed consent period of questioning the effects of testosterone, the combined effects of SSRIs, and testosterone, and any other medications you were taking at that time?
They didn't see any. They didn't see that those things would affect each other in any
Okay.
way. I'm blanking on the word. There was no
Conflictor, yeah.
interaction. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a word, side
Yeah.
effects or something like that. Yeah. And what was the process of like being informed? Were you given like transition goals? Did they create a map for you, like designing your trans identity? Were you given like some sort of like scaffolding to pin your
They
hopes on?
would they would encourage. They would send me emails about changing my sex and name legally, or top surgery surgeons. They were definitely pushing that, but
Were they working with you
the
closely to see what you wanted, or you were just put on this
no, no,
generic trans
no.
path?
They neglected me 100%. I had been neglected. I They told me to up my dosage. I think it was like every 3 weeks. So they started me off on a certain dosage, and after 3 weeks, I was supposed to put that dosage a little higher, and then I would get a blood test. So I did that. and they told me that I could have died, that I could have developed cancer. But they just sent me home and told me to take my shots. I did exactly that. And they were telling me that I could have had cancer. Like, I just did what they told me. They were not watching me closely. And the informed consent was just like 3 printed out papers. It did not look formal. It, I sat there and looked through the side effects. I looked for anything related to infertility. And I did, because I was passionate about that. I wanted to get pregnant and have kids one day. The week before I went in, I was sitting at lunch telling my friends that if I could not have kids, I wouldn't go on testosterone. So I did look through that page. I looked through that page for health related complications, and people think I'm lying, but clear as day, I remember this. And there was nothing on there. It was just physical things like, oh, I would get fat redistribution, my clit would grow, I would get facial hair, I would lose hair. It was nothing related to infertility or health issues. None of that. It was just a list of that. And I asked the nurse to make sure, because again, pregnancy was what I wanted. I asked him if it would make me infertile, if that was something to be concerned about. And he said, word for word, you don't need to be worried about that. He's like, you can still get pregnant. In fact, I recommend birth control. If you want to get pregnant, just come off of it. If you're really paranoid, you can freeze your eggs. And I said, okay, I was glad, actually.
Okay.
I felt comforted. But that's a lie. You do become infertile over time. I'm not infertile, but I was trying to conceive for a year in 2021 and nothing happened. I did get checkups since then, and they don't see anything to be concerned about, but yeah.
What's the significance of being pregnant to you? Because we spoke about your development, wanting to be adored, dealing with other women, dealing with bullying, dealing with the fact that you are heterosexual. You want a guy, and then this other desire that's probably wrapped up in having a man is having a baby too. Like, why do you want to have a baby so bad? Like, what is that about? And how does that interface with being a boy or being trans? Like, how did you square that in your mind, being a man giving birth to a baby? Or
I've always wanted that.
why?
It's just, I guess, the love. I want a family. I want to create life with the person that I love. I don't know. It's just something I've always wanted. But as a trans guy, I guess I just normalized it in my mind, oh, boys can get pregnant too. Seahorse dads, stuff like that. Yeah.
How did your relationship to your trans identity change over time? Like, so you started testosterone, you didn't like it, you took a break, but then you went back on it, things started changing. Did you start like talking like a dude, walking like a dude? Like how far did you push that identity?
I certainly had a character. I felt like I was playing a character
Yeah.
And
Who was he? What was he like? Was he a cool guy? Was he a
he
nerd?
was
Jock? Like what?
like cold and distant, but funny. It's definitely not my actual personality. It was a character. It felt like it was more to entertain my friend group, as weird as that sounds. It
Some
was
kind of
more like I was,
jester costume.
yeah, to make them laugh, it was very weird.
Would you make a lot of puns, or would you like do a lot of pranks? Like, how did you express humor as a so-called boy?
No, I would say outrageous things, or
Okay. Yeah.
it just wasn't me. It was trying to be a character, which is why I believe a lot of trans people who I don't believe are trans, that aren't genuinely trans, are just doing that, playing a character. When I see comments, you know, accusing trans people of that, I mean, I believe a lot of it because that's what you're doing. You're putting on a costume. At least, at least the people with that don't have genuine dysphoria.
What began to start to change your mind about being trans?
It ties back to the second boyfriend I had while I was transitioning. I had been uncomfortable prior to this. Like I said, I was low energy, but he had admitted to cheating on me, and he still wanted to be together. And that sort of triggered me to think about my life in every aspect. Did I want to have a life with this person? I'm not attracted to this person. He's not my type. How do I see myself in the future as an adult? And the image that came up was me as a woman in at her wedding, giving birth, um, just essentially me right now. That was the image that came up. The image wasn't me continuing this lie and this costume, so that when he cheated, that sort of triggered that. And shortly after, I met another man, my ex boyfriend, and he, I felt so connected to myself with him, to that version of myself, that womanly self. I felt like I was not only seen for my personality, but I could be beautiful and perceived. And he did not encourage my detransition whatsoever. I just decided to.
And what was the impact of, how long were you on testosterone?
3 years. I say, I mean, I did get off of it for 4 to 5 months during the first year, but after that, it was 2 straight years.
How did
So it
it?
was from 2018 to 2021.
Okay. What did it do to you or for you, other than the low energy, which is just kind of odd? Did the doctors inquire
Yeah.
into that?
No, they neglected me. I think I only had two checkups that entire thing, that entire journey.
At least
They
did they do blood tests to check your hormone levels?
No, the two checkups were the blood tests.
Okay.
They
No
were
inquiry
actually
into your
very
mental
hard.
state.
No,
Okay.
I had stopped going to therapy. They did not. I It was hard to get an appointment with them. They would hardly ever get back to me. They were out of town. It's just so much BS. But I did have complications and physical changes that I hate. My hair falls out. It's very thin. I have bald spots. The facial hair. My body fat never redistributed back. It never reverted back. I just lost weight, but the fat is still in the same places for me. I don't know why, because that's one thing that they guarantee would revert back. The clit growth, which is very uncomfortable. I do still have sensation, but it's not the same. It's this very weird mixture of like, it's too sensitive, but it's not at all. It's it's very strange. I do still enjoy myself 100%, but I'm not happy with those changes, and I would give anything to go back to how I was. Um, I had ovarian cysts that were
Before
reoccurring.
before
No,
testosterone?
after.
Okay.
No.
So it sped up that cysty thing that goes on in there.
Yeah, that started after detransitioning the cysts. So they come with
Pretty
my
debilitating.
cycles.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
extremely painful. Um, I also had to have my gallbladder removed because my hormones had messed it up. I'm not sure if I had gallstones the entire time or if they had formed from me stopping testosterone, just completely cutting it and not weaning off of it. But my surgeon and doctor definitely think that my hormones were the cause of my gallstones, and it was covered. I didn't have any other options. I had to remove it. That was
It was covered
extremely
by
painful.
insurance. Insurance, you said.
Yeah,
You mean? Yeah. Jeez.
it was extremely painful, and I still have complications from that surgery. I have My colon gets infected. I can't really eat well because of pain. I rapidly lose weight. I can't hold food down.
Is there? Do you need to take some sort of supplement to overtake the effect of not having a gallbladder? I don't know exactly what a gallbladder
No,
does.
I
But
do need to go to a GI doctor to look at my options, but during the time that all of this happened, my cysts and my surgery, I felt like my body was failing. Like I felt like I failed myself. I was full of so much regret. During this time, I was also trying to conceive. I was trying to, I wanted my body to perform a miracle and be healthy, but it was shutting down. And I felt like I had destroyed myself. Nobody in my family at this age has these health complications. Never any problems with our cycles, no cysts, none of this. I knew that it was the testosterone. And I cried and cried during that year. I was supposed to be a healthy 21-year-old, and I wasn't. And yeah, the woman around me were getting pregnant, and I was going to the hospital. I was being driven to the ER multiple times.
And that was in 2021.
Yeah.
In the last 2 years, how have you recovered physically and then psychologically with the choices that you made as a transitioner?
I still have health issues. I went to the ER, I think, twice this year. Sometimes it feels like it just doesn't end. I still have a lot of grief. I feel like the grief just hasn't slowed down. Sometimes I just have horrible days where I regret everything. You know, I didn't really have a normal girlhood. I didn't go to prom. I didn't have my quinceañera. I feel like I robbed myself of a normal life. I do definitely feel better mentally, but the grief hasn't slowed down, and it hasn't been easy.
Where do you find hope?
I don't know. I guess the possibility of having kids and still having my cycle and still being fertile, having that be a possibility still for me.
The one thing about transition, and you've spoken about the physical costs of it, but it can rob one of building a self, building a life, developing, can kind of sideline other aspects of yourself. How have you, since detransitioning, found yourself, discovered yourself, found things that are fun and delicious or exciting in life? Where does that come from for you?
I still have the same hobbies as I did. You know, I love reading and playing video games. That never changed. But socially, it's even harder for me because where I once had a community, I don't anymore. I lost my friends because of detransition. I do have remaining friends and new friends, but they're all men because I was not socialized to make friends with women during my teenage years. I did have female friends, but I never fit in with women. I don't know how to get along with them. You know, I was bullied by them. I feel very awkward around them. I don't know why. It kind
Do
of
you long
feels
for
like
female friendship?
I do. I do wish I had female friends, but I'm content with the women in my family. You know, I hang out with my cousins that are female and my age, my older sister, my sister-in-laws. I do have that sisterhood, but I feel very out of place still with female friendships and female circles. I feel like my personality is boyish, even though I'm very feminine and girly. I just don't feel like the other woman. It's odd. I feel like I'm a boy just suddenly trying to make female friends, which is, I know I'm not a boy and I'm also a female, but that's how it feels like. I have homies, not girlies.
Huh. Yeah. And what is the internet for you now? What do you, yeah.
um
What do you use it for? And what kind of
I
person are you creating out of yourself on it?
I like streaming video games. That's completely not Detrans related, and it's just my little hobby that I've had, but I do talk about my detransition on Twitter. People have been very kind and supportive, and genuinely kind and supportive, unlike the community that I was previously in. Their support was conditional, and my closest friends, that was also conditional and not genuine. But I do enjoy chatting with people and hearing their stories. It's very different.
What do you mean it's very different?
I just felt very brainwashed, and this heavy cognitive dissonance. It was very cult like and robotic, and like we were repeating these beliefs back and forth to each other, trying to convince each other of these certain sets of ideas, trying to affirm each other, basically, you know. Whereas now you just are. I am what I am, and this other detransitioner is what they are, or maybe it's just somebody with a certain set of ideas or beliefs. It's not this. It's not
Yeah.
this cult. I guess it's not
You have to
this.
constantly defend yourself from wrongthink.
Right. Yeah.
And what about your relationship to being adored? Have you matured into your skin more? Have you figured out a balance between like wanting to be adored and not thinking you're worthy of that? Like has that, or have you left that behind?
I still do struggle with that. I still struggle with this idea of the competition. I know that it's not intentional, but I do see pictures of women on Instagram and compare myself. I see women walking about, oh, they have a better body than me, they're prettier than me, they probably have a better personality. It's all this, it's this mental battle that
Jeez, that's so much
I
pressure.
avoided. Yeah. I don't seek attention. I do struggle with this internally, but I don't like seek for validation or attention or from guys or whatever. I don't do that. It's just all internalized and more me battling myself and trying to make myself, trying to seek the validation from myself, but that doesn't seem to be anywhere.
Where do you see yourself in 10 years? 5 years?
I've always wanted to be a young mother, but that's where I see myself, but I'm not sure when that would happen. or if. Not because of infertility, but just because my life has been slow.
You're rather young, though. I mean, to be perfectly frank, 23 has got a lot of future ahead of you.
Yeah, that's true. I I feel like I was sort of held back, with trying to conceive. It's like I was so close. I was almost there. I was preparing to be a mother, basically, very young. And suddenly that's just gone. And like, it's a weird thing to process.
Are you, if you were to look for support on a professional level, what would you be looking for? Peer support, like some sort of therapist, or are you completely burned from that and you're willing to go on your own?
I do have a therapist. But medically, I just, I wish I got help with my cysts. And I did have help with my gallbladder and stuff, but I wish I could just have regular fertility checkups, just for that sort of, just for my health. But mostly, I think the big thing with a lot of us detransitioners is cosmetic help. I want my facial hair removed. I want hair. This is all the hair I have.
You want some luscious mane? Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
I want I don't think anybody can I don't think anything can be done about my growth down there, but
Yeah, that's
I
risky.
definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
I think just cosmetically, I wish detransitioners had free cosmetic care. Some need reversals with top surgery.
Did you avoid that?
No, I didn't
Mastectomy?
avoid it. I mean,
Mastectomy.
I didn't have it. I didn't have it, but
Okay.
I
You
was,
sidestepped that.
yes. I asked. I would ask my sister, my older sister, to search up surgeons to get top surgery. I don't really recall bugging her about this, but apparently I would bug her about this. I do remember saying it occasionally, but apparently it was like a topic I would bring up all the time. She purposely avoided that for me. She would leave me empty promises like, oh, we'll get it next year, or we'll get it when we
Jesus.
move into a new place, because she wanted me to be able to breastfeed. So she would lie to me. And she's the reason that I still have my chest, my breasts. And I'm so grateful for that, because without her, I don't know. I feel like I would have definitely gotten that surgery.
I don't know why that upsets me so much that young women in your position or on your tracker, it's so easy for them to take that part of themselves off. It just seems like, I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm a guy and I'm a mammal, so mammaries just have this like transcendent importance to me, but it just seems like a defilement of Mother Nature to this massive attack on the breast. It just seems like it just seems very, very wrong. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. It's disturbing how you can get it as easy as lip injections. Like,
So what are you up to now? Like this summer, do you have plans hitting the road? You're just gonna take care of your health, do some streaming. What are you streaming? Are you doing Apex Legends still? Is that your game of choice still?
Yeah, I love Apex Legends and horror games.
Horror
That's what I
games.
enjoy streaming.
What's the best one that you've played so far in your life?
Resident Evil 7. I love that game.
7. Okay. What was special about it? Why do you like it so much?
It's just a masterpiece. Like it's it's perfect. I love that game.
Okay. Just cuz. What, the pacing, the atmosphere?
Yeah, the pacing, it's scary. It has an amazing story. The imagery, it's so good. The music.
And career-wise, I assume that if you could just be a trad wife and pop out 8 kids in life, you'd probably be totally fine with life. But do you have any ideas for careers
Definitely.
or like side jobs that you want to be doing? I think you'd be good
My
at?
my end goal is to be a mother and write books, but
Hmm.
also have my own little business that I can run on my own schedule and my own time, and just sort of like as a side job while my husband makes most income. That would be my dream.
What would it be like,
But
buying and selling used clothes or
no, I
project management
my
for like some sort of
family
like
my
party center?
family
Okay, sorry. What does your family
my
do?
family runs their own businesses. All my siblings have their own. My dad has
Really?
two. So that's always just been the path of my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, they help me with that. They organize that. But I can't say what it is because I don't want
Oh
people
yeah.
to
No.
find my location and
Yeah.
stuff. So just have that going. But I guess my dream career is writing books.
Writing books, like what kind of books?
Mm.
Horror
I
books?
have,
Murder mysteries?
honestly, I want to get to the point where I write many genres. I do have two planned that are nonfiction that are about my detransition, and then I have one fictional planned.
Do you have you say planned, so they're going to be done by 2024, like March or something?
I do write here and there,
Yeah.
and take a bunch of notes, but it's not anything like fully drafted.
Yeah. Writing is a pain in the ass. You kind of, the only way to do it is to
Yes.
just sit down every day and pound it
Yeah.
out. It's a pain, especially in this day and age when the internet's right there to completely distract you with little tiny sentences that you can put on Twitter or video games, all this stuff. So good
Yeah.
luck to you, but you should definitely chop out
Thank you.
time and put something
Yeah.
together. I think more stories, especially literary stories of detransition, that's the next step in raising awareness. And so your voice is definitely needed. And to speak like a capitalist, there's a market for that. So
Yeah.
any words of wisdom to confused 12, 13, 14-year-old girls who are reading a bunch of fanfic? Let's say that their mom stumbles upon this interview with the detransition and says, this girl, this Jade girl reminds me so much of my daughter. Maybe my daughter will listen to this. What would you say to yourself 10 years ago, 7 years ago?
Everybody is insecure. Everybody is scared of puberty. Being a girl is hard. Many girls don't like being a girl, but we just are. And we learn to accept that and love that along the way with age. And there's not a person alive that doesn't have insecurities. You just learn how to manage it and live with it, and there is no cure to it. There is no one cure to being insecure. You can't just take hormones and all your problems will go away. You can't take hormones and suddenly become attractive or somebody different. You're always going to be you. You're always going to feel some sort of issue with your appearance. There's no cure. The only cure is learning to accept yourself. And that's not medicalization. That's not permanent changes at a young age. We all want to look like somebody else. We all want to be somebody else. We all want to have these things in fiction because fiction is an escape, but that's not reality. You will be happy one day, and you will even be happy with yourself one day. But maybe some days you'll wake up and not like the way that your breasts look or like the way that your hair looks that day, but you definitely will be content with yourself one day. You just have to go through your puberty, keep growing, and you will get there. But again, that's not medicalization.
What do you love most about yourself?
I think that I'm so sensitive, but like emotionally, it is. I do hate it though, but I feel like I have a big heart and almost like a child's, and it is painful. It's not always a blessing, but I feel like I feel things deeper than most people. And that's not like in a cocky, pretentious way. It's just I feel like I've always been very sensitive emotionally, and like I can empathize with people and sympathize with them.
That is a necessary ingredient of being a good storyteller. So it's a good thing to have.
It's very true.
Jade, let's end the interview. You're a wonderful person. Thank you very much for giving me the chance to pick your brain.
Thank you.
And I'll link links to all your channels in the description. Did you want to shill your shilly thing? Like where can people find you? If you want to just say that out loud, and then they can click the link below.
Yeah. For detransitioning stuff, my Twitter is Jade Rants. But if you're just interested in, just my personal life, I guess, you can find me on Twitch, which is Atreus. That's spelled Atreuz. I play video games. I just chill. That's not Detrans related. So you can find me on either of those things.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
And let me stop it.